So in this video I'll see what I can find. Australia is the driest of any continent on Earth other than Antarctica. Let's talk about the name. The name Antarctica is the Romanized version of the Greek compound word, and I'm not going to pronounce that. Now, a lot of us will have seen Terra Australis Incognito used in various maps. Now, this is not just the Antarctica, this is also referred to as Australia too, Terra Australis. Now, I'm going to show you basically the translation for this and what this means. It is the following. Terra Australis Incognito means terra, land, Australis meaning south, Incognito meaning unknown, the unknown southern land, and that's why it was named for Australia as well as Antarctica. Or is it? Can you get your head around this? The name Antarctica is basically what I said, and it's meaning opposite to the Arctic, opposite to the north. Aristotle wrote in a book Meteorology about Antarctica region in 350 BC. The history of Antarctica emerges from the early Western theories of a vast continent known as Terra Australis, believed to exist in the far south of the globe. The term Antarctic, referring to the opposite of the Arctic Circle, was coined by Marinus of Tyre in the 2nd century AD. So we got two people there in 350 BC and 2 AD, both coining and talking about Antarctica as what we now know it. Who's lying? Didn't I just read out that it's known as the unknown southern land? Yet these guys have actually coined and named it in so-called books in 350 BC and 2nd century AD. Someone's lying, or they're both lying, or we just do not know. What do you think? So let's start by talking about this in regard to names and different things. Now, a lot of people believe we're in a matrix, we're in a simulation, it's flat earth, it's concave. There's so many beliefs in people. Now, one of the beliefs is that there's an ice wall surrounding this realm, and there is other land outside of that. Now, I want to be trying to talk about everything on theorising how they would get to that extra land through Antarctica, etc. I've done it in a previous video, and I'm going to show it in this because I believe it's relevant. So if you're one of those who believe there is an ice wall barrier, hence barrier, the definition, a fence or other obstacle that prevents movement across. So the ice wall would be a barrier. And like I said, it all depends if you believe in the ice wall as a barrier, or even if it does exist, because people believe in many things. Now, as you know, I do suffer from spelling mistakes a lot, not just because I'm dyslexic. I don't, for reasons, I just see words differently and I write them down as it is, and it's only when people point them out that I know that I've done a mistake. We know words are spells, people still want to point out that I've written the spell wrong. Maybe I'm just subconsciously don't want to spell it the correct way, or I'm just stupid, which is, has been said. So, as I was getting to it, I wrote this anagram solver, and I wrote Antarctica down how I thought it spelled, and I missed the C out. So it should be Antarctica. So I actually put it in the way I actually remembered, and it's wrong. So I do have to show you guys it is wrong. But I found something interesting from being wrong. Now, Antarctica or Antarctica. And it got me a few results. Antarctica, Antarctica, Katarina, Katinanara, or Incognito. So the bottom one, for some reason, just shouted out to me. So I thought, what could Incognito mean? And here's what it means. What does Incognito mean in Italian? English translation, wrapped. So we're talking about a barrier, or we could be talking about a barrier of ice wall around this realm. Hence, Antarctica, North Pole could all in fact be the same, but the circle goes around. Depending on what you see, and people will fight and argue over maps, even though I don't believe any map is correct, because all maps are lies, basically. And I've done videos on that, but people ignore that, and they'll decide to, we'll just attack him. Oh, I don't believe in this map, instead of actually listening to what I'm saying and looking at other videos. So, Incognito in Italian means wrapped. So if we're just going off his information, some people are talking about an ice wall surrounding and being a barrier, stopping us from getting to other land and holding maybe the water in, or holding us in or out, depending on which way you want to look at it. So Incognito or Incognito means wrapped. So it's wrapped around. All from a spelling mistake. Doesn't mean it's right. More than likely it's wrong, but I just found it interesting. Now, missing one letter out on an anagram basically got to the same definition as a barrier and what the ice wall is supposed to do. I just want to share that with you guys. You can take it on board or not, or just find it interesting not to share with you. The story so far, conflicting stories in history. Where have we seen that before? We have Aristotle in 350 BC, Marinus of Tyre in 2 AD, talking about Antarctica, and actually in the name Antarctica as being opposite to the North Pole and the Arctic. So why was it called Terra Australis Incognito, meaning the unknown Southland? Because if you've watched some of my videos, and if you've not, I'm going to be putting clips in here to corroborate my story. And it's so conflicting. If they're calling it the unknown Southland, well, in those times, south was in the north, east was in the north, west was in the north, west was east. Everything is so conflicting. So they're talking about being the unknown Southland, but it's not actually in the south. So this is my point. Could we be talking about an ice wall, because it conflicts? Now, some people do not believe in the ice wall, but in this video I'm going to be showing you a theory into why we have an ice wall, what it does for free energy, how it's the power station, how we're talking about Antiquitech, we're talking about the antennas and how they receive the EMF, or the free energy, from the ether to turn into electric, and we see some quick pictures of that above. So if you think about it, something just does not add up. You don't call a place the unknown Southland, even for Australia and Antarctica, if you already knew it centuries before. Who's lying? As we know, history is so conflicting and full of lies. So this is the video I want to make on the topic of Antarctica, and it's something different and combining a lot of theories. Hopefully you'll enjoy it, guys. It is only within the last few hundred years that North has constantly been put at the top. The uncomfortable truth is that despite almost everybody imagining that the world is this way up, there is no good scientific reason to think of North as being the roof of the world. The story of how it came to be is considered the way it is a heady mix of history, astrophysicists and psychology, and it leads to the important conclusion: it turns out that the way we've decided the map, the world, has very real consequences how we feel about it. Given such a long history of human map making, it is perhaps surprising that it is only within the last few hundred years that the North has been constantly considered to be at the top. In fact, for much of the human history, North almost never appeared at the top, according to Jerry Broughton, a map historian from the Queen Mary University, London, and the author of A History of the World in 12 Maps. North was rarely put at the top, for the simple fact that north is where darkness comes from, he says. West is also very unlikely to be put at the top, because west is where the sun disappears. So there's just some interesting facts. Confusingly, early Chinese maps seem to buck this trend. Bob Broughton says even though they did have a compass at the time, that isn't the reason that they placed north at the top. Early Chinese compasses were actually orientated to joint south, which was considered to be more desirable than the deepest, darkest north. But in Chinese maps, the emperor who lived in the north of the country was almost put at the top of the map, with everyone else, his loyal subjects, looking up towards him. In Chinese culture, the emperor looks south because that's where the winds come from. It's a good direction. North is not a very good one, but you are in the position of subjection to the emperor, so you must look up to him. That is why north has been put to the top. Given that each culture has a very different idea of who or what they should look up to, it's perhaps not surprising that there is very little consistency in which way early maps pointed. Ancient Egyptian times, the top of the world was east, the position of sunrise. Early Islamic maps favoured south at the top because most of the early Muslim cultures were north of Mecca, so they imagined looking up south towards it. So you can see my point when I'm talking about how can these people call it the south, the unknown Southland, if south is all over the place. That was the point of why I had to show these clips from an old video. When Columbus describes the world, it is in accordance with east being at the top. Right guys, the reason I've got the compass on the screen is just to show you, sometimes it's easier to see. Now picture you have north, and I'll just move it on now, north at the top, east, south and west. Obviously Antarctica was known as the Terra Australis Incognito, along with Australia as the unknown Southland. But from antiquity up until the middle of the medieval period, we have what we know now, because I've showed you the evidence so far, that south wasn't at the bottom. Sometimes south was in the north position, east was sometimes at the top, west. All different cultures and civilizations had south in all directions. So why is it called the unknown Southland? Can you see me where I'm getting at? If they're calling it Antarctica because it's opposite, then fair enough. But from the medieval time, from Mercator onwards, it was known as Terra Australis Incognito, the unknown Southland. So that if they actually knew it was there, and then they've projected it as south, that's why they've called it. But we know from the compass, it could have been all over the place. So this is just an interesting fact that I wanted to show you. So when you see the compass directions changing around, like on screen, you can see, well, what they're actually talking about. If south is moved all over on the compass directions, it can literally be everywhere. For some reason, it could be all around us. Right, guys, what are you going to need? Well, you need a lot of discernment. So please, anyone that's got an itchy triggered finger, just watch it. Treat it all information. This is just a theory. It's crazy that you have to do this, people. People just get ridiculous these days. So you have to imagine in your head. So I'm looking up now, and hopefully above me, hopefully Paul remember, hopefully there is a picture of ice walls. Hopefully. And you have to imagine that ice wall can create a kinetic magnetic field, and it slowly turns, creating the force of free energy. So it's my understanding from my long-standing theory. I've talked about it briefly in little bits of videos, but you've got to imagine if the ice wall can turn and it surrounds us, it creates a field which then goes up into the firmament, right, creating this free energy. Now what I'm going to also show you in this clip coming up, hopefully, and if it doesn't pass inspection, I'm screwed. So we'll have to briefly talk about it as well if it never goes through. But in this video that I found, they actually use a copper wire circle, and energy comes in from the sides, and it creates what we actually see with our own eyes. So it creates a toroidal field that we see. It creates all the things that we have seen in this realm, and it's a circle. So that's what got me onto the thinking the circle ice wall has to be magnetic of some type, friction, and it turns. I mean, in the lab they are creating something called spin ice, where the ice becomes magnetic. And you have to even consider that they have found magnetite mineral, which is obviously magnetic, And you know what I mean? They actually found that in Antarctica. So if they found that in a lump sum in this area that I'm referring to as an ice wall, and it's creating free power, but it's slowly turning, it's not a far stretch to think that that is why where all compasses point to. So anywhere you'll go, you move out, it'll automatically turn around and point backwards to it. So if it's going all the way around, it's always pointing all the way around because of the magnetic field. I know it takes some getting used to, but it just works for me. Doesn't mean it works for you, because obviously in my head it's like an Oscar-winning film. You know what I mean? And it makes sense. I can't get that sometimes out to show you guys, but hopefully I'll do my best. So you have to picture and use some discernment, because it is, to me, it's a really, really good theory, and just thinking out the box that people are talking about different communities about, yes, there's an ice wall. No, there's not. Think about if there is an ice wall, and like I'm saying, it's slowly turning, creating a kinetic friction force. That is a wow, because it only has to move a certain amount to create unbelievable amounts of force. Now, is this being turned off? Did the ancients turn it off? Or are the so-called Kabbalists actually using it for their own, ill deeds, and actually not sharing it with the general populace? Because we don't have free energy like we used to. So they're not sharing it with us. So that is my belief, that the ice wall turns to create a free kinetic friction type of energy. You can see EMF, whatever, but it's got so many minerals in the ice. Even the ice can become magnetic. It's called spin ice, as I said. And then you have the minerals, the magnetite. It's actually been found, and if I remember, I'll put it on the screen now, and you can just see it actually has been found. So take all this into account, watch it. Hopefully you'll enjoy what you will see. Right, guys, thank you. So on the left you can see magnetite, and it's a mineral and one of the main iron ores with the chemical formula Fe3O4. It is one of the oxides of iron and is terramagnetic. It is attached to the magnet and can be magnetized to become a permanent magnet itself. It is the most magnetic of all of the natural occurring minerals on Earth. And look at the side, you can actually see it's been found in Antarctica. So it fits my description of what I'm trying to get at. Now you can quite clearly see on the right now, instead of that, magnetic fields can be used to make electricity. Moving a magnet around a coil or a wire, or moving a coil or wire around a magnet pushes the electrons in the wire and creates an electric current. Electricity generators essentially convert kinetic energy, the energy of motion, into electric energy. So my theory is, instead of around a coil, it's obviously the ice wall moving against minerals or other ice underneath, creating that kinetic energy, that electric energy in the use of power stations. Because we always see some structures, and I'm going to show you some weird structures in Antarctica later. So it all fits what I'm trying to get at, and it's exciting me because it's just different, and again, a different topic for the channel. Picture a circle wall of ice all the way around, wrapped even. Now imagine the ice wall will look like the copper wire that's coming up, and bear with me, it will make sense.
By interacting magnetic fields. When electricity flows in a coil of wire, a magnetic field is created. This field reacts with the field of a permanent magnet.
I have sprinkled on some iron filings, and they're going to be randomly oriented. So now I'm going to apply a current to the coil, which will generate a magnetic field. And what will happen is that the iron filings will become magnetized and rotate along the magnetic field lines, so we'll be able to visualize the generated magnetic field lines. So now I'm going to turn on the current, and I might have to tap it a little bit to get the iron filings to rotate. inside the coil, you can clearly see how the iron filings have rotated along the magnetic field lines. As you move away from the coil, you can see how those field lines start to spread out. Now, if you look at the left edge here, you can see how those magnetic field lines form closed paths around the coil. In fact, any of these magnetic field lines will form closed paths, but you can't see that for some of these because as you get farther away from the coil, the magnetic field was not strong enough to rotate the iron filings. We have visualized the magnetic field lines for current going around in a circle. So here is a sketch to illustrate what those magnetic field lines look like.
Just like nitrogen, oxygen isn't normally magnetic. And just like nitrogen, each molecule of oxygen behaves like a tiny magnet when it's exposed to a magnet's magnetic field. Oxygen behaves differently than nitrogen, though. The way oxygen behaves is called paramagnetism. That's a fancy way of saying that each molecule of oxygen is attracted to a magnet's magnetic field. So, when I pour the liquid oxygen between the poles of the magnet, it sticks. And we can even make a little bridge out of liquid oxygen that'll stay there until the oxygen finally boils away.
So I saw this structure that I'm going to show you now while I'm researching for this video. Now, could it just be an ancient settlement, an ancient civilization that we do not know? Or could it be, what I'm theorizing, could it be a structure of a power station of some sort to harness the power of the, the magnetism created by the ice spinning against each other? And obviously I want to show you all that in this video if I've not already. Now think of this in your head, and you have to have some discernment and some imagination, because obviously this is just me theorizing here. Picture the ice wall moving, and it only has to move a fraction to create the force, the friction of so much ice moving against other ice or minerals underneath can create so much power. Now I'm theorizing that the ice wall moving is what powers free energy in this realm. For the Tartarian Antiquitech star forts, could this be a star fort? Or because it looks like two structures that I've seen, one in the Jordan and Enki or Adam's calendar in South Africa. Now I'll zoom in and I'll put pictures on that side by side when it's closer, but I'm just going to zoom in now, and this is what I've seen on the internet, and I don't take it for granted. I check the location to see if it's still there, and it is. And this is not a camera issue. This looks to me a structure of some sort. You can't get way around it because of its design. Now you can quite see it coming in now. I've just put the place underneath. There you go, guys. That for me cannot be a natural formation of ice, rock or whatever protruding underneath. That looks like some sort of circular structure, whether it was on top or is underneath, and obviously the ice is just like pushed down to it. Now I'll put the pictures of Enki's calendar, or Adam's calendar as it's known, at the side, and then the structure that's in Jordan. They look very similar. So could it just be an old, structure? I believe it's 120 meters across. So it is quite big. So this is just what I'm theorizing. Could this be a cooling tower of some sort? Some sort of ancient Antiquitech that was removed or destroyed. See what you guys think. I just think it's cool and it's interesting to include with this video about Antarctica. So do you believe in more land, like I was talking about before? Whether it's the flat earth map or the hollow earth theory? What if I could show you the entrances to either one and tell you how Janus is connected? Surely you would be wowed. So guys, as I've just showed you in them images, I want to show you what connects both hollow earth, the entrances to hollow earth, to Agartha, or the flat earth map that shows extra land and it's Janus. I want to show you how that is connecting to the both. So if you're new to my channel and wondering why is he talking about Janus, Janus is the god of gods to the Kabbalists. He is a god of entranceways, archways, portals. So in a ritual for the wording of the spell, you would name entranceways to either hollow earth or extra land in flat earth map as Janus. You would. So here we go. So let's just put in Antarctica and zoom in. So there we have it. Just get rid of that so we can show you. So there's Antarctica. Now they don't have North Pole on the maps anymore. As we know, it's just blanketed off. Now what's interesting is, as we know, this looks like a brain stem, the brain and then the stem. And people talk about another gateway in the brain, and it's called the pineal gland. It's funny that the occult name for the pineal gland is Janus. So there we go, another gateway, and it's named after the insignificant god. So let's have a look. If I was them, and like I was saying, I wanted to name the entrance to more land, you'd name it Janus. So could we find two Januses on either side? So let's see what we find. Janus, oh there we go, Janus Island. And as you can see, zooming in, Janus Island. So I believe this is an entranceway or near to the entrance to either, because like I said, I believe there is more land, but you know, what do I know? So but I would know that it would name it Janus. And look, they've even called the place, it doesn't even turn up on a map, there's nothing there, just a name, and it's called Shortcut Island. So an entranceway leads to a shortcut to where, and that is the thing, it blew my mind. Why name it Janus? Because he's a god of portals and entrances and arches, and so much his CV is ever growing. So if you believe either in the flat earth map with extra land, how would you get to them extra land? You would need entrances, obviously. If you believe in the hollow earth and Agartha, and you're talking about the entranceways, it's supposedly it's at North Pole and South Pole, so you'd need two. So there's one Janus Island, and that so happens to be in Antarctica at the south, and obviously I can't show you the North Pole because they've took it off the maps, but the next best thing is Greenland. So let's see, Janus Island Greenway, nope, not working, that one, I don't know, they saved, where is it, there we go. One entranceway, straight line, completely up. Oh wait, we have another. So, and as we know, Google Earth won't show you anything, and that's where North Pole used to be, you know, roughly in that region, and then just blanketed out with the no images. So we have two islands at opposite ends of this realm, both named Janus after the god of entranceways, portals, and this what blew my mind and made me want to look into who and what is this Janus. And I found out so much, and I've done so much research on it, and you can see if you want to go back into my videos and have a look what I've done on Janus. But this is just a wow for me. Two islands named Janus on opposite ends, fits either map perfectly. You need an entranceway, and we know these guys love rituals. So if it's an entranceway, it's a gateway, it's a portal, they're going to name it after their god, who is Janus. And there we have two islands named Janus. That just blew me away when I found it, guys. Hopefully it's blew your mind if you've seen it for the first time. I still to this day don't know why more people don't talk about the significance of this when they talk about either hollow earth or the flat earth next to map. because this is, like I said, I made the original video over a year and a half ago, but it's like a lot of my things, people just ignore it for some reason. But anyway, here we go guys, this just wowed me. Hopefully you're enjoying the video. I've been talking about the ice wall being magnetic and it's creating the kinetic force. We've all seen that. And I've just showed you about Janis Islands being on the north and south. So there's that interest too. But what if I could show you something else that should make you go, Because we know it's all about the ritual, the spells of naming things. I've shown you that already. So here we go, let's just click on this. And there you go, zooming in now. And it just passed Davis Station, and as you can see, there's nothing there. Because they don't want you to see it. Right, I'll zoom out a bit, see if names come up. Nope. So you can see at that location, which is higgledy-piggledy with crappy photos and that, and it just mixed. So it's like they don't want to show you. Well, that location there, right there, have a guess what it's called. Cue the lift music. Can I find any music? Let me just give me a few seconds. Let me put some weird music in. Pretend it's lift music, and I'm just going to give you a few minutes to guess what this island or islands is called. So go. There we go. Let's even remember to put some in. I probably don't. Anyway, that island, and I'm just going to show you a little picture so you can actually see. It's called Magnetic Island. Wonder why they came up with that name. As I say, it's like you can't make it up. So you can see it's just a fair distance away from Davis Station, and they don't even show you the island. But as you can quite see, it's called Magnetic Island, and there's not much on it. They don't want to tell you much on it, and you just say it's a small island in the Donsky Islands group, in the Donsky Islands group lying 500 meters northeast of Turner Island, part of the Princess Elizabeth Land, Antarctica. So you can quite see it's interesting, and it's called Magnetic Island. I just found it fascinating when I come up with that. Oh, could there actually be an island called Magnetic Island? So there you go guys, Magnetic Island. So I'm talking about ice, magnets, spin ice, a theory on how free energy is and was created for Tartaria for the Antiquitech. And as you know, I'm talking about how the ice slowly moves and creates the kinetic force. It's funny now, I just found this article from 3 years ago, and it talks about magnetic materials help explain how Arctic ice melts. So the discovery of an unlikely relationship between melting sea ice and magnets could help scientists produce better models of global climate. I'm not going to read it all out because it's all the humpfla and all the the articles. So I'm just going to pick things out, and if you actually want to look at it, it's just called wired.com. Magnetic materials help explain how Arctic ice melts. So this is an aerial view of Arctic ice. So it's the same principle as you know. I'm predicting the ice wall goes all the way around, so they're both the same, the Arctic and the South Pole, Antarctic. So as I was just saying, discovery of an unlikely relationship between melting sea ice and magnets could help produce better models for global change and global climate. So I'll briefly read it out a little bit. Kenneth Golden, a mathematician of the University of Utah, was pursuing images of Arctic sea ice when he noticed a pattern that seemed familiar. When seen from above, the melting sea ice looked like a field of white mottled with dark splotches where the ice had turned to liquid. To Golden, it seemed awfully similar to the arrangement of atoms in a magnetic material. So he's saying basically when the ice was melting, it looks like magnetic material at an atomic level. And here's me talking about the ice becoming magnetic. Go figure. So there's no obvious reason for magnets to have a relationship with aerial photos of ice, but the thought stuck with him More than a decade later, the intuition is finally solidified into a model that can be used to better predict the effects of climate change on sea ice. Melt ponds are exactly what they sound like, pools of water that form on top of the sea ice. When the ice top layers melt in the spring and the summer, the ponds are important because they change the reflectivity of ice. Ice has a high albedo, meaning it reflects most of sunlight that it hits. Water, however, has a lower albedo and absorbs a large portion of sunlight as heat. This produces a feedback loop. As ice melts to form melt ponds, a higher percentage of the ice surface absorbs sunlight as heat, which melts even more ice, producing more larger melt ponds. So I'll go further down to read out this picture there, and I'll put it on the screen now as bigger. This is what's called the Ising model, which explains magnetism helps simulate Arctic melt ponds. So as you can see, that is what he's talking at atomic, at an atom level, looking like that picture. So this is just what made me go, because obviously this is what I'm talking about in this video. And that's named after Ernest Ising. The model started out as a problem given to Ising by a thesis advisor in 1920. Now it's commonly taught in statistical mechanics, textbooks and classes. Magnets work because individual atoms can be thought as a mini magnet with north and south pole. The direction of the north pole is called the magnetic moment, and because atoms are quantum in nature, they only have two choices of direction: spin up or spin down. When all the atoms in a piece of material align their magnetic moment, the entire material becomes a magnet. This is the lowest energy configuration the atoms can take. Somehow, by hanging out with those people in melt ponds, seeing all these images, it's stuck with that golden. And this is where he come up with the thesis that's become reality. In that model, magnetic moments have arranged in a grid where each atom's moment can only interact with, potentially change, the moment of a next door neighbour. This makes patches of the same spin atoms form in the material. As Golden flipped through photos of the melt ponds, he noticed that they interact with the surrounding ice in much the same way. So there you go, guys. I just thought it was interesting that they're talking about the magnetic properties of ice, and it's melting, looking like Ising's model. So it just blew me away when you just start looking at things differently. And like I said, it could be nothing, but I just find it interesting. And obviously I make these videos not just for myself, but for you, just for something interesting to watch. In the lab, they are making artificial spin ice. So yeah, it's just interesting, isn't it, to think about ice in this way. And it looks like I'm not the only one who's thinking the magnetic properties of ice, and that's just why I'm putting in, because it's just cool and it helps this theory that I have in my head. So before, I've been talking about how magnetite or any other minerals in the ice can make it magnetic. Well, here we have colloids, right? Colloids are common material with one material that is evenly distributed with another material at a very tiny scale. Some common examples of colloids include milk, fog, jelly, styrofoam and whipped cream. Within colloids, a substance or substance A is evenly distributed with another substance and substance B. Depending on whether the solid is liquid or gas, the resulting colloid materials are called. And obviously you have, in the picture, you have gas, liquid, solids, obviously solid substance A, and so on. Now, if you're wondering why am I talking about colloids and how substance A, gas, liquid and solid are mixed with substance B, which is liquid, foam, emulsion or sol, I'm going to show you now. And again, it's just I'm lost for words. Now have a look at this, guys, and tell me, is this why they've called it this in the region? Rotating crystals of magnetic Janus colloids. Monodisperse magnetic colloids are found to self-assemble into unusual crystals in the presence of rotating magnetic fields. First, we confirm a predicted phase transition directly coupled to a dynamic transition of single particle motion from disordered state to hexagon crystal. Next, going beyond what has been predicted, we report how hydrodynamic coupling produces shear melting, dislocations and periodically mobile domain boundaries. These uniform magnetic colloids with structures are modulated in situ using the protocols described here, demonstrating a strategy of stimulus response in the colloid domain with potential applications. So this is on about something they've made it in a lab. If this is actually done in nature, and I'm talking rotating crystals of magnetic Janus colloids, making things magnetic, a colloid, the Janus colloid. Why could that be why there's Janus islands, magnetic islands, all interlocked with each other? I'm just thinking out loud, guys, and I'm just like, whoa, I've not heard of this before, so I'm sharing it with you first in this video. Rotating crystals of magnetic Janus colloids. Could that have to be something to do with how the ice is magnetizing and creating an energy, kinetic energy, because of these magnetic Janus colloids? Whatever it is in nature, in the ice, is creating the free power. And is this the fascination with Janus? Not only that he's the god of gods, he's known as the sun, the moon, and everything else that I've showed you in my video. Now, could he be the reason why we have the free energy, the power, through these Janus colloids in the ice? It's just a thought, and I'm sharing it with you. But the reason why I'm reading it out, because obviously I believe the Arctic, which is the North Pole, is the same as the South. Obviously it goes all the way around. That's just my opinion. And the currents in this realm are beneficial, obviously, for obvious reasons. Now, this is from scientific reports. Need for focus on microbial species following ice melt and changing freshwater regimes in a Janus Arctic gateway. Oceanic gateways are sensitive to climate-driven processes. By connecting oceans, they have a global influence on the marine biological production and biogeochemical cycles. The furthest north of these gateways is Nerd Strait, at the top of the North Water between Greenland and Ellesmere Island, so it's not far from Janus Island. The gateway is globally beneficial, first by supporting high local mammal and bird populations, and second with the outflow of the phosphate-rich Arctic waters, fueling the North Atlantic spring bloom. Both sides of the North Water are hydrologically distinct, with countercurrents that make this Arctic portal a Janus gateway. After Janus, the Roman god of duality. We examine an ocean, well, he's amongst other things, but I almost have said that first, but you know what I mean. They have to name things after him. That's my point. Why? And when I'm talking about this, and I've showed you what evidence I've put in, and I've left so much out, I just wanted to make this video a little bit different from what you have already seen on the Antarctic and Arctic. We examine oceanographic properties and differences in phytoplankton and the other protist communities from the eastern and western sides of the North Water. And then it says, I found the species differently marked due to salinity, stratification regimes and local hydrography. There's some words. So that's just why I wanted to read this bit out, because it's talking about this passageway being the Janus gateway, the Arctic portal, and we're talking about Hollow Earth, we're talking about extra land. So not only we have these Janus islands, we've got Janus portals and Arctic portals. So there's just more for the theory that I'm trying to get out in this video. Right, guys, I think I might call it a day now and then and do my thoughts, because I could keep going all day. It's not like I'm gonna mention magnetic ice play for kids. Look at that, it's not even loading now. Oh my dear me, does not want to load. There we go. So magnetic ice play for kids. Do you want to get creative for science if you haven't thought about doing preschool science activities? A magnetic ice science play activity below. So, you know, we go, guys, they're teaching it to the kids. So, just thought I'd share that with you. Right, guys.
Yeah, they call me the black sheep. You know they call me the black sheep. I'm running wild while you're asleep. They're trying to call me the black sheep.
Hello and welcome. Hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed that bit of different. I wanted to make a video that is totally different and stays true to what I am, and like I said, a bit different and outcast. And I believe I've done that because I didn't want to make a video, the pyramids of Antarctica, the giants, and I wanted to tie in long-standing theories because it only just recently came to me when I was making this video, theorizing obviously, that my long-standing theory of the ice wall moving, moving, creating a kinetic force, which then is, thrown up into the ether through the firmament, and all these antiquitech buildings and architectural pylons and different things are collecting free energy. Now, I've seen people, free energy collecting, harnessing the energy, cathedrals and all that type. Yet I never put two and two together. I've had this theory on about the ice wall moving and spin ice and different things for a long time. I might have talked briefly in a few videos. Other people know I've talked about it. I've done posts on it, but it never thought to me that this process of the ice moving on the ice wall, obviously if there is an ice wall, because like I said, I've never been there, I cannot attest to its existence. It's just from what research that I've found and what we all put together. So if you imagine a huge scale, an ice wall moving out, and if you've seen some of the old pictures on the internet, you'll see some of the ice breaking away. Is that due to the stress of turning? Is the power stations underneath or on the side of the firmament? Because people are always theorising that the firmament or whatever people believe in, it comes down to there. For instance, why have a mountain called Dome A? And the A actually stands for Argos, which, apart from being a shop, is actually a giant with, I think it's 100 or 1,000 eyes. So, you know what I mean? They're one of the interesting things. And I wanted to do a video as well and try and not show like Admiral Byrd, this, Admiral Byrd, because there's a lot of videos out there with that. So I wanted to do something different. And I believe I have, coming up with a theory that is showing people how free energy was created due to the turning of the ice, I think is refreshing. You might be always nuts. Well, I'm just theorising. I'm doing no one any harm. If you get triggered by it, it's your problem. I'm not apologising for your, weak-minded efforts and wanting to troll. I just don't get why people troll. I'm old school. I don't like it. Move on. But people thinking they're really good and hard want to troll other channels. I do get trolled, but not to the significance of other people. I just don't see the point of it. If you think about it, we talked about power stations in Antarctica. A lot of people have for a long time. I mean, look at that structure. I didn't personally find it. It was on the internet and I was showing in this. So you have to watch what you word because people actually use it. It's a crazy world that we live in. What's wrong with a guy sitting down in front of a computer talking to his friends and people who are just interested in this topic? The good old days, when people used to scroll past posts they didn't like. I think that's gone, hasn't it? So we have the idea that there's ancient people living in a civilization, because to me that looked identical to the Jordan, but on a smaller level, and obviously Adam or Enki's calendar. Could it in fact be something to do with the dates, the times, or was it just an ancient structure? I just don't know, but I'll just put that in there, theorising could it be a structure that was, used by people who used to work or live there. And then you have the Pires-Reyes map, when people say, yep, it shows you Antarctica, without ice. And then I thought, you know, I might put that in, and then I found so much evidence, not so much evidence as well, to actually say no, it's Asia and it's different land masses. So I did, you know what I mean? I just saved myself some hassle putting in, and people saying, oh well, this is not actually Antarctica, even though I would have said in the you know, the forward, the slip, oh please, this is just, you know, people don't actually listen to the words anymore. Breathe. So yeah, so I'm just so interested in Antarctica. I think we all have. Sometimes we do take the eye off the ball as such. That North Pole was that disappeared too off the maps. It used to be there, and then it's just disappeared. Has it ever been there? Is it an ice wall like Game of Thrones type of thing? Is it a barrier? And that's another thing I wanted to talk about. Me misspelling the word by taking the C out, and the actually meaning of that word means wrapped, and we're talking about something being wrapped around the outside. I just thought that was, you know, coincidentally funny, and I had to put that in, even though people will say, well, they spell it wrong and you get wrong meanings. Yeah, it's just funny how it just seemed to still fit. So the theories and ideas I put in the videos are just that. We know all history is a lie because it's his story. It's Janus. I theorised on that. I've showed that in videos actually what the his stands for. And to find, even again, people are talking about Hollow Earth, lands outside, more land outside this realm. Yet, years ago, I found 2 islands, one on opposite ends, and they named them after the god of gateways and portals. Could that be the entrances, the exits, you know what I mean, basically the gateways between Moorland or the Hollow Earth, depending on which you actually believe in? That to me is word spells at its best. They could have named these anything. They could have put the sorting hat on and come up with so many different ideas, but no, they chose Janus, the god of portals, entryways, gateways, arches. His CV is so long. So that was my point, and that was one of my old wows that I found. It might be a year to 2 ago. Like I said, the video was in my Janus collection, the Janus Gateway. I just found it, whoa, because people do talk about land outside. How would you get there? Would you need a portal? Would you need a gateway? Say what? We'll name it Janus. That is the gateway. And I just thought, you know, that just fits it beautifully. It's just crazy how they love to use that word. And that's why I found other things like the Janus Gateway in regard to, you know, the currents. Them named it that. Obviously, it's not actually its proper name, but, you know what I mean? It's how they label things. It makes my brain alarm go. I'm like, wow, why are you naming things that? And that's the intriguing thing when we start looking at things differently. I mean, you think about it, they called Antarctica, like I said, Terra Australis Incognito, meaning the unknown Southland. And this is a point I was trying to make, if I did make it, in the fact that at the time of writing this in the, you know, the so-called medieval time period, south, east, west, north, it wasn't at the top. They're all interchanging depending on your culture. So how can the unknown Southland be called the unknown Southland if it's not in the south? Did you get where I'm coming from? If the common thesis at the time was east at the top, south at the top, see my point, the unknown Southland then would be in the north of what is north now. And I've talked about it before, that the cardinal directions were brought in that time period. And they're named after Cardia, Janus's counterpart. It's what cardinals are named after too. So think about it. Why did it get bringing? When did it get bringing? Well, the first map maker to actually bring it in was Mercator. And he brought it in. Was it? I can't remember the date now. I didn't write it down. 1360 or was it 1560? It was one of those days. I think it was the 15 one. I'm not quite sure. But he was the first one to put north at the top. But he had the poles to affinity. He didn't care. He said, we're never going to go there, so I can put the poles on my maps to affinity. If we're never going to go there, how do you know they're there in the first place? That's majestic. We know all these lands are here because they're mapping them in, but he put the poles to affinity. Cardinal directions were brought in, and it's in the time period called the Great Vowel Shift. All the sciences that we still use today, cardinal directions, the heliocentric model, all brought in the Great Vowel Shift, the vowel to L, the vowel to God, and their God is Janus. They changed the language, they changed everything, and it's in that period that the maps and the compass directions, the cardinal directions, with north being what it is now, south, east and west, came to fruition. And that's when it was brought in. So when we're talking about Antarctica being the Great Southland and Australia, who says it's in the south? South at the time was at top. If you know what I mean, and they had east, you know what I mean? So it's just crazy that we're just not thinking out the box at some of these things. And listen, I've done it before. We take things for granted, and we should all go back and look at it with a different fresh eyes. Yes, history is a lie, but we still have to research, really look for the information that we do know is in us. So if we just give in and say basically, oh well, history is a lie, well, no point looking. I can't do that because I find it fascinating. I don't treat it as a lie, I treat it as information. Why are they saying this at this specific time? Why are they doing that at this specific time? And that is giving you the impetus to delve in, and that's what I do. And I look at it with my fresh eyes. Does not mean I'm right, does not mean I'm near to it, it just means it's my idea. And I encourage everyone to have their own idea, and hopefully my information that I've done before is the impetus for you to say, well, yeah, Paul, yeah, I like that idea, but I think it's this because I've researched this and this fits better. And that's perfect, because the truth is personal, like I always said. And that's why sometimes we do get trapped in it, because it's a rut as well. So I just wanted to make things different. I believe I've done that. I've shown a lot of contradictions in it, in the fact of, if we called it the Southland, why did Marinus of Tyre and Aristotle in the 350 BC and second century AD talk of an Antarctic opposite to the Arctic? So that means that the 2nd century AD, they knew the Arctic, and then the South Pole was opposite, because that's what it called it. So there's contradictions through the roof, because it's history. So hopefully, guys, you've enjoyed this little bit of difference. Hopefully you've enjoyed my theory on how free power to Tartaria and other antiquitech is created through the ice wall. If you watched the video, if it passed inspection, if it didn't have to edit it, is the fact that on a circle, copper circle, it creates the magnetic toroidal field that we all see. It also, if you look, it will, if it goes all the way around us, north will always change to that, because it's all the way around us. And it's just my idea and just a theory. Don't get triggered, guys. Just research it better. It's all opinions. And guys, thank you for watching. I will hopefully see you in the chat. Like I said, I don't know how long I'm going to keep going for, because obviously I posted last week about them wanting to monetize my channel. I don't want videos on it. People, I might, depending on what you guys say after this, do a poll and see what you guys want me to do. At the minute, I want to just walk away. And it's not from dramatic effects. It's just that the other platforms, the way I do my videos, it just does not suit. It takes too long to upload. So I'll just have to see what you guys think. Because also it is about me, but it's also about you. So we'll see what you guys think. And like I said, it's not happened yet. I just don't want you guys, thinking bad of me. So I'm leaving it open for now. See what you actually guys think. So remember, always wear a smile, take care, and hopefully you've enjoyed. And I remember to put that music in. I think I did, the lift music. My ideas on how the free power and the compasses could work, and why the maps are all a lie. I put all it in little bits, left a lot out, but hey, you can't keep going and going and going because you'll be here for days. Right guys, take care and smile.